Before we get into today's big Ohio State football story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the channel for daily Buckeyes news, recruiting updates, and honest Big Ten talk you won't get anywhere else. Now let's dive in, because Ohio State's future schedule just sparked a massive debate across college football, and it all centers around one simple but explosive question: will the Buckeyes really keep playing Alabama and Georgia in future seasons, or could those games quietly disappear from the schedule? Over the next decade, Ohio State has built one of the most ambitious non-conference slates in the country, featuring home-and-home series with blue blood programs like Texas, Alabama, and Georgia, matchups fans love, TV networks crave, and coaches secretly fear. This season already includes the return trip against Texas, a game that's been circled since the moment it was announced, and that's just the beginning. In 2027 and 2028, Ohio State is scheduled to open a massive two-game series with Alabama, followed a few years later by a blockbuster home-and-home with Georgia in 2030 and 2031, and on paper, it looks like Ohio State is daring anyone to say they don't want smoke. But behind the scenes, college football is changing fast, and with the SEC moving to 9 conference games and the college football playoff still in flux, fans have started wondering whether these headline matchups are actually at risk. That concern recently came to the surface when Ohio State Athletic Director Ross Bjork addressed the topic publicly, and his comments sent a pretty clear message, at least for now. Speaking during a media appearance, Bjork made it clear that he hasn't heard anything from Alabama, Georgia, or other powerhouse programs suggesting they want to back out of these future games. In fact, according to Bjork, the schools involved still see massive value in playing elite non-conference opponents, even as conference schedules get tougher. His logic is simple: if you play a big-time opponent early, and you win, you immediately put yourself in a strong position nationally, both in the rankings and in the playoff picture. That mindset represents a major shift from where the sport was just a few years ago, when many programs preferred to pad their schedules with weaker opponents to protect their record. The debate intensified after Texas narrowly missed the college football playoff in a recent season, finishing 9-3 and falling just short of the field. One of those losses came against Ohio State in a high-profile non-conference showdown, and critics quickly argued that Texas might have made the playoff if they had scheduled an easier opponent instead. But that argument doesn't tell the whole story, because Texas also suffered a damaging conference loss that hurt them just as much, if not more. Bjork essentially dismissed the idea that big non-conference games are the problem, emphasizing that the real goal is to win consistently, especially within your league. According to him, if you're competing in a conference like the Big Ten and you finish 12-0, 11-1, or even 10-2, you're almost always going to be in the playoff conversation. That perspective matters a lot as the future of the college football playoff continues to evolve. Right now, the playoff will remain at 12 teams through the 2026 season, but behind closed doors, expansion talks are heating up again. The Big Ten has been pushing hard for a 24-team playoff format, while the SEC has shown more interest in a 16-team model, and those two power conferences are essentially locked in a philosophical standoff. One proposal gaining traction would expand the playoff to 16 teams for a few seasons before eventually growing to 24, which would dramatically change how teams approach scheduling. A larger playoff field would mean a bigger margin for error, making it less risky to schedule elite non-conference opponents because a single loss wouldn't carry the same season-ending weight it once did. Bjork has indicated that Big Ten athletic directors are deeply involved in these discussions, meeting regularly and staying in close contact with Commissioner Tony Petitti as they try to shape the future of the sport. From his perspective, expansion isn't about watering down the regular season, it's about keeping more teams relevant for longer. Instead of half the country being eliminated by October, an expanded playoff could keep dozens of programs in contention deep into November, making more games meaningful across the board. That argument also ties into the financial realities of modern college football, where schools are now directly compensating athletes and searching for new revenue streams. More playoff games, potential play-in matchups, and expanded postseason formats could help offset those costs while keeping fan interest high. Of course, expansion would also raise questions about conference championship games, which could lose some importance if playoff access becomes easier, but those concerns might be balanced by new formats that introduce additional high-stakes games at the end of the season. What's clear is that college football isn't standing still, and Ohio State wants a seat at the table when these decisions are made. Bjork made it clear that the conversation isn't ending anytime soon, and that both Ohio State and the Big Ten intend to have a strong voice in shaping what comes next. For Buckeye fans, the takeaway right now is straightforward. despite all the uncertainty swirling around the sport, there's no indication that Ohio State is backing away from its future heavyweight matchups. Alabama and Georgia are still on the schedule. The mindset inside the athletic department favors playing and beating the best, and if the playoff expands as expected, those games could actually become an even bigger advantage rather than a risk. So for now, circle those dates, because unless something drastically changes, Ohio State plans to keep testing itself against college football's elite, and betting that winning big games is still the best way to stay on top.